Hello friends, welcome to Learn Easy. Today in this session we will discuss law of supply and demand. Law of supply and demand depicts the association between the sellers and purchasers of a particular good. It describes the relationship between the price of a particular good or product and people's willingness to buy or sell it. In general, people tend to supply more and demand less as prices rise, while the reverse is true if the prices fall. It is a theory that takes from both the law of supply and the law of demand. Law of supply. The law of supply states that the higher the cost of the goods, the more is the supply from the sellers. In figure, y-axis represents price of the product and x-axis represents quantity of the supply. The supply curve indicates that supply will be more if the price increases. The law of demand states that the quantity purchased varies inversely with price. In other words, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. Alongside the law of supply, it explains how market economies allocate resources and determine the prices of goods and services. In figure, y-axis represents price and x-axis represents quantity demanded. The demand curve indicates that demand will be less if price increases. Law of supply and demand. The willingness of the consumers to supply and demand a product establishes the market equilibrium. This equilibrium can also be achieved when suppliers readily supply the amount demanded by the consumers. Yet, numerous factors may affect supply and demand. The equilibrium price. The essential aspect of the demand and supply curve is equilibrium. At the point E, the demand and supply for a good become equal. This means that neither is there a shortage nor a surplus of good in the market. At equilibrium price P1, quantity purchased is Q1. Demand is derived from the law of diminishing marginal utility. The fact that consumers use economic goods to satisfy their most urgent needs first. The law of diminishing marginal utility states that the marginal utility derived from the consumption of every additional unit goes on diminishing, other thing remaining the same. The law of diminishing marginal utility is based on two important facts. Though human wants are unlimited, each single want is satiable. Second, commodities are not perfect substitute for each other. In the first fact, when a consumer consumes more and more units of a commodity, intensity of his want for the commodity goes on falling and reaches a point where the consumer do not want any more units of the commodity. The second fact is that the different commodities are not perfect substitutes for each other. Hence, when an individual consumes more and more units of a commodity, the intensity of his particular want for the commodity diminishes. Graphical representation of law of diminishing marginal utility. X-axis represents units demanded and y-axis represents utility. AC is total utility curve and AB is marginal utility curve. When total utility reaches to its peak, marginal utility becomes 0 at point B. The graphical representation of law of demand. The graphical representation of law of demand is a curve that establishes the relationship between the quantity demanded and the price of the good. The quantity demanded on the x-axis and price on the y-axis. The definition of the law of demand indicates that the demand curve is downward sloping. Assumptions of law of demand. The law of demand is based on a few key assumptions. First, consumer preference for lower prices. When the price of a certain commodity is low, consumers tend to buy more, and when a cheaper alternative is available, they would always go for it. Second, stable consumer preferences. This assumes that tastes and incomes do not change over time. This means that usually changes in demand are due to a change in price and not because of changes in tastes and income. Third, perfect information. It is also assumed that consumers have full information regarding the availability of commodities and prices prevailing so that their choices are better informed. Fourth, income of the consumer remains constant. The consumer's income is assumed to stay the same. Any change in income would affect the purchasing power and alter the level of demand. Fifth, prices of related goods remains constant. The prices of substitutes and complementary goods are taken as constant. A change in the price of related goods can shift demand even if the price of the commodity itself remains the same. Sixth, no expectation of future price changes. Consumers are assumed not to expect future changes in the price of a commodity. If they expect a price rise, they may buy more now. If they expect a fall, they may postpone purchases. Seventh, no change in population. The size and composition of the population are assumed to remain constant. Any increase or decrease in population would affect the total demand in the market. Exception to law of demand. In certain situations, the law of demand does not hold true. In these cases, the quantity demanded may increases even when the price rises or decreases even when the price falls, such as given goods. Given goods are inferior products for which raising the price results in a higher demand, therefore breaking the law of demand. Usually basic for low-income consumers, such as coarse rice or wheat. These products are named as Giffen goods to honor Sir Robert Giffen. For instance, a poor household might buy more rice to cover their stomachs. Even if the price of coarse rice increases and cut down on pricey goods like meat or veggies. Second, Veblen goods. Prestige goods are named as Veblen goods to honor the economist Thorsten Veblen. These items are regarded as status symbols. Therefore, demand increases at more expensive prices. For instance, luxury watches, designer handbags, and high-end cars become more appealing as costs rise, drawing more customers who wish to show off richness or social status. Third, speculative demand. Consumers may buy more now even if present prices are high, when they hope prices will climb even more in the future. Rising prices in real estate or the financial markets, for instance, often inspire panic purchasing or demand motivated by investments, therefore driving prices even higher. Fourth, needs and consumable products. Some items are so ingrained in the habits that people keep buying them independent of price fluctuations. They are simply absolutely necessary. As for example, salt or medication need, alcohol, habital, or cigarettes. Lack of replacements or addiction keeps demand inelastic even with price increases. Price as indicator of quality. Consumers sometimes link better quality with higher prices. When costs climbed, especially for branded or foreign products, this view can generate more demand. For instance, a customer deciding on a more expensive skincare product, thinking it must be more effective even if a less expensive substitute is available. Emergencies and panic situations. Consumers stockpiles items regardless of costs in items of natural catastrophes or pandemics out of concern for shortage. For instance, even as prices skyrocket, demand for food basics, hand masks, or sanitizers rose during the COVID-19 epidemic. Now let us see how demand shifts at the same price and move along the demand curve with change of price. Shift in demand. A shift in demand means at the same price, consumers wish to buy more. A shift in the demand curve occurs when the whole demand curve moves to the right or left. If you find the topic interesting and helpful, may please subscribe my channel and press the notification bell. A movement along the demand curve occurs following a change in price. Movement along the demand curve. A change in price causes a movement along the demand curve. It can either be contraction, less demand, or expansion or extension, more demand. Let us examine the graphical representations of this. Movement along demand curve. A movement along the demand curve occurs following a change in price. Contraction in demand. An increase in price from rupees 10 to 12 causes a movement along the demand curve and quantity demanded falls from 55 to 40. This is contraction of demand. Expansion of demand. A fall in price from rupees 10 to 7 leads to an expansion or increase in demand. As price falls, there is a movement along the demand curve and more is bought. Reasons for demand curve to shift left or right. First, change in taste and preferences. As style and desire to consume certain items increases or decreases, it will cause a shift in the demand curve. For example, drinks that have a lot of sugar became less desirable in recent years. That means the taste and the preferences of consumers have changed. With this change in demand, the demand curve for sugary drinks shifts to the left. If something has become more popular recently, like electric vehicle, then that increase in preference will cause a shift to the right. Second, population increase or decrease. The size of the current population directly affect the quantity of demand for all goods and services at every price. When the population decreases, the demand curve shifts to the left. When there is a growth in the population, the demand curve shifts to the right. Third, price change of a related good. There are two types of related goods: substitute good and complementary good. A substitute good is exactly how it sounds. It is a good bought in exchange for another product. If the price of one thing goes up, they will find something more affordable to substitute it. If cold drinks brand A rises in price, people will switch to similar cold drinks brand B. When prices of brand A increases from P1 to P2, quantity of demand decreases from Q1 to Q2. People switch to similar product of brand B. Hence, demand curve D of brand B moves right to D1. A complementary good is a good that often goes together with the product we are buying. Changes in the price of a complementary good also causes a shift in our demand curve. For example, if there is a steep rise in the price of milk, people will stop buying cereal for breakfast since milk is a complementary good for cereal and is now relatively expensive. In figure, milk and cereal are complementary good. Demand curve of cereal has shifted left from D1 to D2 when the price of milk has increased from P1 to P2. Fourth, change in the expected future prices. If people expect that the price of something will rise in the future, they will buy more of it today instead of at a later time when it is more expensive. For goods like oil and gold, people often buy in anticipation of rising prices. If people anticipate the price of something will go down in the future, instead of buying today, they will wait for the price to go down. If many people are waiting for the price to fall, then there are fewer buyers today and the demand curve shifts to the left since there is less quantity of demand at every price. In the anticipation of price will go up in near future, demand curve D1 has shifted right to D2 as shown in figure A. On the contrary, when anticipated that price may go down, as in figure B, demand curve D1 shifted left to D2. Fifth, change in the income level of buyers. If someone's income goes up, that means they have more money to spend on buying goods or services they need. If the income level of many people goes up at the same time, there will be a lot more money people will spend and the demand curve will shift to the right. The opposite will happen if the income level drops. There will be less money to spend and the demand curve will shift to the left. In figure A, income rises, demand will shift right from D1 to D2. On the contrary, if income drops, demand D1 will shift left to D2. Sixth, the demand shifts to the right for inferior goods. When the income level increases or at least stabilizes, the demand for inferior will then decreases as people will once again be able to afford high quality products. Inferior goods are necessary goods that people rely on to survive when they are short of money, like basic foods, as for example bread, rice, potatoes, or cheap clothing to stay warm. When the income level drops, the demand for such goods actually increases, as shown in figure A. And when the income level increases, the demand for such goods actually drops, as shown in figure B. Seasonal factors. We buy more coats in winter. That's all for today. Thank you.